What happens to us when the heart stops and breathing ceases? Thoughts disappear, the body becomes still, and it seems like everything is ending. But what if this is just an illusion? What if at that very moment begins not an end, but something far more mysterious and grand? Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, claimed exactly this. He left his body not just once. In deep trance states, he saw what is normally hidden from living eyes. He described the soul's journey through dense layers of reality, where fear, time, and boundaries disappear. He said death is birth into another dimension, while life is just a brief moment in an endless chain of incarnations. But can these accounts be trusted? Or is it all fantasy produced by the brain at sleep's edge? Today we'll follow Cayce's trail and peer where ordinary people go only once, at their final moment of silence. In this episode, we'll trace Edgar Cayce's path, a man who claimed to see what's hidden from most. His trance state wasn't just sleep, but travel beyond the body to where our true essence, the soul, resides. Cayce spoke of moments when his consciousness separated from the physical body and began ascending through darkness full of shadows, symbols, and forgotten memories. He moved through levels of existence until reaching a hall without walls or ceiling. There he received answers that changed people's lives. We'll examine in detail how this transition looked, according to him, what stages the soul passed through, and what he himself felt during out-of-body experiences. You'll learn why he considered death not an end, but the beginning of a great transition. This isn't just a mystical tale. It's an attempt to recover lost knowledge about what awaits us all at our last breath. At the dawn of the 20th century, as humanity was just beginning to understand the subconscious and interest in mysticism grew rapidly, a man with abilities far beyond comprehension appeared in small-town Hopkinsville, America. Edgar Cayce was born in 1877 into a deeply religious family. He grew up a modest, sickly boy, often immersed in prayer and Bible study. His environment considered divine miracles normal, but he turned out to be a vessel for something much greater. At just 16, Cayce discovered a phenomenal ability. Sleeping on a book, he'd wake with its entire contents memorized. Over time, he began entering trances, where he'd speak of things completely unrelated to his normal consciousness. People came for help, and as if connected to an invisible source, he'd give precise diagnoses, describe past lives, and offer healing advice. No one then understood what exactly was happening to him during these moments. But Cayce himself believed he left his body and entered the space between worlds where time and matter cease to exist. To grasp the scale of Edgar Cayce's experiences, we must examine what he encountered during his trances. Cayce said he received information from a so-called Hall of Records. He described this space as a vast, wall-less, ceilingless hall, filled with light and a sense of eternity. There, he claimed, are stored records of all human lives, past, present, and possible futures. This phenomenon later became known as the Akashic Records. It's not just a knowledge repository, but an energy field imprinting every soul's thoughts, actions, and intentions. His accounts also frequently mentioned spirit and soul as separate human components. The body, to Cayce, was merely a temporary vessel, while the soul is eternal and capable of existing across dimensions. During trances, his consciousness would rise through layers of darkness, shadows, and distorted forms until reaching a realm of light and peace. There he felt connection to a higher power he never named, but perceived as infinitely wise and benevolent. This all happened not by his will. He was merely a channel through which flowed information hidden from ordinary perception. When Edgar Cayce entered trance, his body remained motionless as if in deep sleep. But his consciousness seemed to separate and begin ascending through dense darkness containing no forms or sounds, just a suffocating sense of isolation. He said at these moments he saw himself as a tiny glowing point suspended in void. This point would move toward light, a thin, nearly imperceptible beam appearing in endless dark. Everything within told him following this light was the only way. The closer he got, the stronger grew the sense something important lay ahead. This was the first stage of his journey, separation from the body and movement toward the knowledge source. The path wasn't easy. He passed strange, distorted, nightmare-like beings, frozen outside time. But none could stop him. He felt no fear, because within he always heard a silent call. Continue, don't stop, keep going. This was when true transformation began, as he detached from the physical world and crossed into other reality layers. After traversing borderlands of darkness and distorted perception, Edgar Cayce would reach a special space he called the Hall of Records. This place defied ordinary description. Without walls, ceiling, or floor, yet one felt inside a giant chamber filled with soft, living light. At its focus always stood one figure, an old man with a book. This mysterious keeper would hand him a voluminous scroll or large book containing information about whoever the reading concerned. Each session began identically. He'd say, "We have here the entity," confirming connection established and work could begin. Sometimes he described feeling like a bubble moving through dense substance, as if pushing through water until reaching the point where answers always came. This journey took minutes, yet felt eternal. In this space, he seemed to lose personal identity, becoming a pure conduit. The voice giving detailed descriptions of illnesses, karmic knots, and past life events wasn't fully his own. He became part of something greater, connected to a system storing all knowledge about each of us. According to Edgar Cayce himself, every person is first and foremost a soul, not a body. When the physical vessel ceases functioning, true awakening begins. He described death not as disappearance, but as separation of spirit and soul energies from earthly anchors. In this transition, he said, occurs a certain click, a shift moment after which one finds oneself in a new state of being. This is why Cayce considered ordinary sleep death's shadow, for in sleep, too, our soul briefly leaves the body. He explained the difference between spiritual and physical levels lies in vibration. Matter and spirit vibrate at different frequencies, so while embodied, we can't directly perceive the spiritual world. It's like a rapidly spinning airplane propeller, present but invisible. When Cayce spoke of these matters, he emphasized the soul's freedom to move through levels accessible only to those releasing fear. His journeys through those worlds resembled ascending through veils. The higher he rose, the clearer became the truth. Death is merely a new mode of existence, filled with awareness, light, and return to one's true self. But what happens to the soul after final separation from the body? Edgar Cayce asserted, the soul's journey continues through levels reflecting its state of consciousness and accumulated experience. Initially, it may enter a space of dim light and silence. There it seems to rest, remember, process earthly experience. Then it rises higher into realms where thoughts become reality and desires instant manifestations. These worlds contain no lies, because everything one feels and thinks becomes immediately visible. Cayce said the soul begins perceiving itself as it truly is, without masks, roles, or social conventions. It meets other entities, sometimes those close in earthly life, sometimes guides helping it onward. Some souls linger long in these transitional spaces if bound by earthly desires or passions, but those ready move forward toward light, new purpose, understanding their true nature. There, Cayce said, decisions about next incarnations are born, what lessons to undertake, which souls to meet again in different roles and circumstances. Edgar Cayce repeatedly stressed that awareness is key to any spiritual journey. He explained that even after death, a person retains individuality, memory, and inner conflicts. Death doesn't automatically solve problems. It merely transfers us to another state where all that's hidden becomes obvious. The soul continues developing, but now its lessons depend not on the body, but inner honesty. In this state, any distortion, lie, or self-deception becomes painfully clear. Cayce described many souls experiencing real pain, not from punishment, but from realizing how they could have acted differently. This is the purification they undergo. Moreover, he claimed souls themselves choose when to return to the material world to complete unfinished business. Each incarnation isn't random, but precise calculation, accounting for all previous steps. Those who've completed earthly tasks may remain in higher planes as guides. Those still facing tests re-enter dense matter to continue their journey back to source. One of the most mysterious aspects of Edgar Cayce's experience was his interaction with the so-called Akashic Records. He described this as access to a universal memory field recording absolutely everything, from each person's thoughts and deeds to civilization's histories and possible future events. In this space, linear time doesn't exist. Everything happens simultaneously, as if countless films played at once while you could select any frame and enter it. Cayce asserted that upon entering the Hall of Records, he didn't just read information, but felt it. Each record was like living memory saturated with emotions, sounds, images. He could tell someone who they'd been in past lives, what karmic knots they brought into this one, and what needed changing to avoid repeating mistakes. He believed everyone has a purpose, and true happiness comes only from following one's highest calling. The Hall of Records didn't judge or evaluate, it simply reflected everything within you, and only you decide how to use this for growth or avoidance of truth. Despite accessing such powerful knowledge, Edgar Cayce claimed he remembered nothing upon waking from trance. This seemed paradoxical. A man speaking of the soul's and cosmos's finest mechanisms would wake unaware of what he'd just revealed. His son, Hugh Lin, once asked him directly why this happened. The answer was astonishingly simple yet frightening. Cayce said if he consciously retained all his soul experienced during these journeys, his mind might not withstand it. This was protection. Protection from overload, from destructive truth not everyone is ready to receive. Beyond the body there are no familiar anchors, and unprepared, one could drown in this boundless ocean of truth. Perhaps this is why such knowledge comes to us gradually, in dreams, insights, meditations, or unusual states. The brain filters, protects the psyche. But the soul, it always knows. Cayce simply let this deepest part of himself speak. His voice was just the conduit, the source something far more ancient and wise than human consciousness. Sometimes during readings, Edgar Cayce received messages from those we call departed, deceased relatives, friends, or even strangers, whose souls sought to convey something important to the living. In one such case, Cayce relayed words from a man who died of tuberculosis years earlier. He described places he'd been happy, spoke of unfulfilled dreams, even mentioned his grandfather, who in earthly life never built the family home. These communications seemed intensely personal and emotional. Cayce emphasized souls don't vanish. They remain nearby, observing, experiencing, seeking ways to remind us of themselves. He explained the space separating us isn't physical, but vibrational. We simply can't see them because tuned to different frequencies. But when frequency shifts, in meditation, sleep, or extreme experience, we may sense their presence. To Cayce, this proved life's continuity. He said death doesn't sever connections. It merely shifts relationships to a new level, where everything depends not on words, but energy and intent. Over time, Edgar Cayce noticed the information he received concerned not just individuals but entire nations, civilizations, and Earth's future. He spoke of global changes affecting the planet and all humanity, predicted axis shifts, catastrophic events, land submersions, and spirituality's awakening as the only path to salvation. To him, our planet wasn't just a space-flying rock, but a living entity undergoing its own purification and transformation cycles. If humanity doesn't change its ways, keeps destroying nature and forgetting spiritual roots, it will face severe consequences. Cayce viewed these events not as punishment, but natural rebirth. The old world would vanish so a new one could be born. But survival wouldn't go to the physically strong, but the internally pure. His decades-old prophecies are already materializing. Climate changes. Earth reminds us of itself. The question is whether humanity will heed this call in time, or keep living as if no danger looms. Despite all his knowledge and unique abilities, Edgar Cayce remained humble, never placing himself above others. He believed everyone could access the same sources available to him. The keys were intention, motive, purity, and willingness to listen. He taught that the human soul isn't something external or distant, but the essence within each. The closer we come to understanding this, the brighter shines the light behind everyday veils. His primary mission wasn't to astonish with predictions or miracles, but to awaken memory. Memory of who we were, why we came, and where we must return. Through his readings, he revealed a map of the invisible world existing regardless of our belief. His experience isn't just about trances and visions. It's a reminder of our true nature, forgotten truth, and daily opportunity to choose light. For between life and death, there's always a door, and everyone must eventually walk through. Now comes the moment when everything Edgar Cayce described forms a complete picture. His interworld journeys, soul encounters, Akashic access, all point to one truth. We live not one life, and even death holds no power over our existence. The true wonder lies not in what Cayce saw, but what he tried to convey. Humans aren't just body and mind. We're multidimensional beings, capable of changing reality through awareness and inner transformation. The secret he revealed is that we've all been to those spaces before. We've just forgotten. We sense it in dreams, strange coincidences, déjà vu moments. Cayce wasn't chosen. He was an example, proof of what's possible by releasing fear and listening to our depths. This is his story's culmination, recognizing that doors between lives were always open. The only question is whether you're ready to enter. And if so, what will you find on the other side? We live assuming reality is only what can be touched, seen, measured. But Edgar Cayce's story shows true reality begins where the familiar ends. He gave us a rare glimpse beyond worldly boundaries, reminding that the soul isn't fiction, but every person's authentic essence. He didn't demand belief, just shared what he saw. Now the choice is yours. Will you consider that this life is just a brief episode in an endless journey? Perhaps now's the time to ask, what happens when it all ends? Or, when it all begins? Share your thoughts below. Do you believe the soul leaves the body and continues existing? Have you had unexplainable experiences? Like if this story moved you. Subscribe to keep searching for answers together. More reality-shifting stories lie ahead. Remember, between life and death stands just one step, and that step leads within.